Hello there.
And welcome to my second installment of an edited video based off of multiplayer games, I suppose. Typically, when you create a video essay, you're supposed to establish some sort of factual information. So here's my research baseline. I want to talk about 3 important things. 1, what the heck is an MMORPG? 2, where did MMORPGs come from? And 3, what is the significance, if any, of MMORPGs? So strap on in, and I hope that this isn't a too long featurette of my research. According to Wikipedia, the history of MMORPGs began long before the term was coined in 1997 by Richard Garriott, the creator of Ultima Online. More on that game later. MMORPG, of course, stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. The year is 1974, and the geeks at MIT figured that they could get their Dungeons and Dragons on, a tabletop role-playing game, by connecting to each other on the ARPANET, a complicated web of serial cables that allowed universities to send cookies to each other. These early rudimentary games were primarily text-based, but allowed users on different computers to interact with each other on a virtual space. Revolutionary. Games such as Adventure in 1974 and then later Zork in 1978 allowed players to use D&D games with one another on interactive toasters like DEC PDP-10. As personal computers became more affordable in the 1980s, those with access to dinosaur modems that could go from 300 to 2,400 bits, not megabits, per second, could log on to multi-user dungeons, or MUDs, to play role-playing games that had a computer as a dungeon master. Apparently, MUDs, or colloquially named multi-undergraduate destroyers, due to how long people played on them, were so popular that they continue to exist on the web somewhere today. Later in the 80s, developers continued to galaxy expand their brains. They wanted to develop a role-playing world where a life within a life could be made real in a virtual space for players to immerse themselves completely in characters they've made. One of the first of its kind to be launched was a revolutionary MUD called Avalon: The Legend Lives. It boasted an economy, governments, politics, and all of those world-building features that many RPGs sport today. The idea was so tasty that many MUD developers would go on to become influential MMO makers. Brian McQuaid of EverQuest and Mark Jacobs of Dark Age of Camelot, just to name a few. Of course, the commercial success of MMORPGs really hinged on the internet being more widely available. The first online games cost about $6 an hour on AOL to play. To put that in perspective, a good internet connection these days would cost you about $47 a month, give or take. The lowball average time spent online for most MMO players today is about 21 hours per week. If online games continued to cost $6 an hour, that would be a whopping $504 on video games alone in a month. Not something your average household can afford these days. Also, $6 an hour. The minimum wage in the 1990s was as low as $425 an hour. So not super feasible. Let's fast forward to 1997. Ultima Online was the first graphical MMORPG to make it big in Europe. From then on, MMO gameplay spread like wildfire, especially as the internet became more widely available. 56K bit modems really became a household staple around 1998, which, surprise, is when the first boom of MMOs hit their stride. The first EverQuest launched in 1999, Phantasy Star Online, one of the first sci-fi MMOs, released in 2000, Dark Age of Camelot in 2001, and the still existing Runescape today came out also in 2001. You've got Final Fantasy XI in 2002, EVE Online in 2003, MapleStory also in 2003. As the big daddy itself, World of Warcraft enters the servers in 2004, and by gods, MMOs have been unstoppable ever since. To this day, there are over 5 million active players in the top 20 most played MMORPGs. At its height, World of Warcraft had 116.73 million registered users. The other modern 5 are Guild Wars 2, Black Desert Online, Final Fantasy XIV, and of course, Runescape. Each of these games boasts at least 20 million users each. And as you know, that is at least more than 4 people. Wow. So why does this matter today? Besides the fact that buttloads of people continue to play these games, some culturally significant events did happen within MMOs. The pay-to-play model truly hit its stride in gaming through the MMO genre, which is a pretty substantial way to affect the money-making business side of MMOs. The Corrupted Blood incident was an event that occurred on World of Warcraft in September of 2005. It was a pandemic that rocked the player base with a disease-like debuff that spread from the release of a new playable area, Zul'Gurub, where players lost health over time, and the spell would jump from player to player through non-playable characters. And because of the way the non-playable characters like minions and NPCs and other pets and things like that were not affected by the debuff, it gave light to how carriers could be symptomatic versus asymptomatic. While the affliction should have only affected really endgame players, the spell somehow ended up in cities, whether by accident or due to the griefing of players. A pandemic spread through the player base, killing off lower level characters, and it drastically changed gameplay for the month. Players didn't want their characters to get sick, so they quarantined themselves and avoided densely populated areas. Their risk-averse behavior lasted until the developers patched the virtual world. The conditions and the reactions of the event actually caught the attention of epidemiologists, with the CDC contacting Blizzard Entertainment, the makers of World of Warcraft, for their statistics on the event. Between serving as a model for epidemic research and terrorism due to the griefing, where players purposefully do things to annoy other players, the Corrupted Blood incident was an opportunity to study human behavior and, of course, public health emergencies. If you look hard enough, I am sure that you can find papers out there comparing the current pandemic to that virtual pandemic.
What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to sit 10k off a target, we're going to blap it really quick, and then we're going to warp to the run spot. Does that make sense?
Roger.
Yep. Outstanding. Okay, stand by.
Okay, so there is a lot of money in MMORPGs. Whether you're paying to play or you're buying and selling in-game stuff for real-life monies, unsurprisingly, the old saying, time is money, applies to online games. Whether you're paying a monthly subscription to play the game or make some form of money by selling the stuff you find in-game, the virtual economy regularly interacts with the real economy, not unlike cryptocurrency. In some cases, virtual economies can have much more stable economies than actual countries. In 2020, Polygon reported that many Venezuelan players made livable wages playing Runescape in comparison to other minimum wage jobs. Runescape players could make upwards to $450 a month selling gold in comparison to making about $4 average a month. All right. Of course, that's not the only game that has real world value. In 2014, the complicated interactive Excel spreadsheet The Game EVE Online became the site of one of the most expensive virtual battles. Because of how EVE Online works, you could buy subscription time with in-game currency, giving EVE's economy real market value. On the eve of January 27th, a 21-hour-long conflict began between two large in-game factions, involving over 7,000 players with over 11 trillion interstellar credit losses recorded. Converted to the then current market value, that battle cost the players over 300,000 USD. So many MMO players, even those who have never touched EVE Online, have referenced this bloodbath as a testament to the game's complexity and thriving in-game economy. There are other culturally significant, i.e. expensive, gaming moments in MMOs, and many of them surrounded the companies, secrets, subterfuges that occurred within EVE's crazy online world. Definitely worth looking up. You know, those were just two examples of how MMO events have really contributed to pop culture, and if VR continues to grow the way it does, I'm sure we're going to have a Ready Player One moment sooner rather than later. MMOs matter because they're a facet of gaming culture that have evolved into something so much more than what the original developers of MMOs, Zork, and Adventure probably envisioned. I don't know if those developers ever thought that we were going to get some Second Life moments or Matrix-esque like games, or maybe they did. Maybe that's what they wanted. Let's just hope that Ready Player One isn't what the future really will look like, even though I think we're closer to Oasis-like games than we think we are. Anyways, that's all I have for research for now. There are so many more macro events in MMO history that I would love to delve into, and I'm sure that some of you have heard of or experienced some of these moments, and I'd love to hear from you, so please do share. This is my brief featurette that I wanted to focus on for my documentary. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.